Well, gentlemen, welcome to week 8. You made it of the spring session of Ironmen, where we have been talking for the last 8 weeks about this beautiful little thought of the constant question, that question that won't go away. We started out early on talking about the fact, this little quote from Paul Tripp saying that whatever rules our heart has an inescapable influence over our thoughts and our actions. That the big question is, what is it that we're going to give our hearts to? What's our fidelity given to? In any given situation, it matters deeply. And we talked about maybe another way to think of that, about who is it or what is it are we going to worship? And that worship is certainly includes, but it's way more than singing songs. It's literally an expression of how we live our lives in response to who or what we trust the most with our well-being, or who we look to give us our sense of well-being. And we demonstrate that by how we live in response to that with our lives, with our words, with our thoughts. So it's a full life embrace in a direction to Almighty God. And we said that the first idol wasn't a thing when we get this miscued. In fact, John Calvin said that literally the human heart is an idol factory. It's not if it's going to worship something, it's just what is it going to worship? And then for us, our biggest first idol and struggle was ourselves. It was me, the me monster, if you can remember back that far, that we talked about from Genesis chapter 3. And we spent some time talking about Israel and this whole concept of syncretism, that we can hold on to God, but also hold on to other things that we give as much weight to, if you will, or trust is most like we do with God. And we kind of can trust God, but build a golden calf of sorts using our own context, if you will, to give us a deeper sense of peace, even than God himself. We want God, but man, do I need more of this too. And so we talked about that, and just this sense of cognitive dissonance between often our beliefs and our actions. And that they're not meant to be fighting one another. They're meant to be in harmony and with one another. And this call to not move the boundary stone of worship, to not expand it to something else, because there ultimately isn't anything else. And that we're meant to trust God. And that in trusting him, we'll actually please him. That we're meant to live in the room of grace, not simply the room of good intentions. And that he alone is worthy. And then last week, we just talked about how do we continue to learn to enjoy the things of life in the right way, in the right order, so we don't try to get more from them than they can actually give to us. Because when they get out of order, the worry factor goes up and the contentment reality goes down. And we talked about the beauty of being invited by our creative, imaginative, glorious God to learn to enjoy properly the good things that he has given us to enjoy. Well, during this last time today, I want to just review and put our memory verse, if you will, under the microscope a little bit. John Calvin once said that the surest source of destruction, hear this, the surest source of destruction for men is to obey themselves. Think about that. This isn't to say that men or people in general don't have something worthwhile or don't have worthwhile insights into things, but it is to say, if you will, that we can get into trouble when we begin to trust in ourselves, seeing ourselves to be actually wiser than we are, as though there's no one greater than us to whom we can look to for wisdom and insight. It's not, as Tim Keller said, it's not that people don't believe that God exists. It's just that sometimes we just don't believe that he ultimately matters all that much. So we can take things back into our own hands. So the key is learning. The key is learning to be wise and to live wisely without being wise in our own eyes. This is why I think that great French proverb that I've mentioned before comes into play, where it says you not only have to want what you want, you also have to want what your wants lead to. And sometimes being wise in our own eyes, we just want what we want. We ignore where our wants could lead to which God would be ringing a bell saying, do you really want to go there? And when we don't realize there's somebody else who's spoken about this thing of life before us, we can get ourselves into craziness. So this constant question, it never goes away. We're always dealing with it, is ultimately who and what will I trust? And what will I ultimately give my sense of well-being to? I think of the two gardens in the scripture, the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve got the answer to that question wrong. They didn't trust. And then I think of Gethsemane, where our Lord Jesus Christ got it right when he did. And so I just want us to begin to think about that on these ends of life, so to speak, and that one day the one who actually trusted in the garden is coming back to restore us fully into that place where all things will trust God again as we should have in the beginning. I want to show you just a quick little YouTube clip to help us think about trust a little more of a family gathering. Just watch this and enjoy this. I think it's pretty declarative.
Fall, and it'll be an exercise in building trust between one another. So Harrison, if you don't mind going first, step up here on this chair and close your eyes. All right, and then everybody fill in, and we're going to ask you to fall, and then they will catch you. So you have to trust us. So I'm going to count to 3. Just relax and fall. Okay? 1, 2, 3. No, wait, no!
All right, man, I think that got your attention. You're just glad that wasn't you, right? No, seriously. Again, we can trust the wrong thing, even thinking we're doing the right behavior. But I want to call us back to Proverbs 3, 5-8, where it starts out saying, trust in the Lord with all your heart. I know that can sound like a big ask, but this word trust is beautiful. It obviously means to trust in or to believe in, or to rely upon. When you trust in a chair, it isn't saying, hey, that chair, I think the chair could hold me. It's when you actually go and you sit down in the chair, you are expressing trust or a sense of reliability, a knowledge. You're admitting that chair has the strength for me to put my weight on. Well, that's what trust means, that God alone can bear the weight of our trust. He has the strength to hold it. In the Hebrew mindset, faith had feet. It wasn't something that you just had a philosophical discussion about. It was known through how someone lived. That's why James says faith without actions is dead. But we trust people in numerous ways. You and I do this every day without even knowing it. We express trust in numerous ways daily. In fact, think about this. The next time you're driving down the road in a 2-lane highway, which most of them are, you are trusting that the person coming in oncoming traffic wants to live as badly as you do and is not going to come into your lane, that they do not want to play tag. The next time you get on an airplane, you're going to fly, sit in a plane, you're going to go up to 33 to 38,000 feet with somebody who is at the helm of that plane that you've never met in your life. You are trusting that they want to land the plane as badly as you want them to. When you go to a restaurant, you are trusting that the food that comes out is made by a chef that isn't doing crazy stuff with your food in the back. You've never met that chef. You don't know whether they're having a good day or a bad day, but you trust that what is coming to you when it's steak isn't dog food made to look like steak. It's actually what it is, or an investor with your money, or a doctor with the diagnosis. I think you get my point. But why do we trust people that we ultimately can't be totally sure of or know? And I think part of it is we have the habit of good outcomes. There's the habit of good outcomes. And I think when the scriptures say, look, put your weight, your strength into God, that what we're asking you to trust isn't a thing or someone you don't know. It is the Lord who has declared himself as the maker of heaven and earth. Listen to these words from Psalm 146. This is so beautiful. Verse 3-6. Do not put your trust in princes or in human beings who cannot save. For when their spirit departs, they return to the ground. On that very day, their plans turn to nothing. But blessed is he whose help is the God of Jacob, whose hope is in the Lord their God, for he is the maker of heaven and earth and the sea and everything in it. The Lord, he remains faithful forever. Forever. I invite you to read Hebrews chapter 11 again. If you get some time, it's magnificent, because in that beautiful chapter, it talks about people who have gotten so much from God that God literally obviously parted the sea. He's given people back their loved ones from the dead, that he's calmed storms. It's one thing after another of God's provision and goodness, but it says, but others were sawn in two. They were tortured. They were imprisoned, but they didn't give up faith because they knew God. And hard times tend to reveal our truest thoughts of God. Our trust level is rooted, whether we are conscious of it or not, really in the perceived ability of the one we trust in to come through for us. Let me say that again. Our trust level, whether we're conscious of it or not, is rooted in our perceived ability of who or whatever we trust in to actually deliver or come through for us. The question is, what if we believe, but things don't seem to get better? What if you say, well, God, I trust you, and you lose your business still? What if you say, God, I trust you, but my kid just keeps rebelling? What if you say, God, I'm putting my reliance on you, but they're sick and they didn't get better? And sometimes maybe they do, and they do, but maybe not every time. The question is, will you trust him still? Or where else will we go? Trust in the Lord with all our heart. And none of us does this perfectly, but I do think we get some examples. And what I love about the scriptures is there are real people like you and me doing life. Some of you look back to the book of Daniel, the prophetic book of Daniel, chapter 3. There's 3 men called Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were thrown into a fire one day to be burned alive because they wouldn't bow down to Nebuchadnezzar. And there's the words that were spoken then. Listen to these words. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. For if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, get this, the God we serve is able to save us from it. For he will rescue us from your hand, O king." Boy, listen to these words. "But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up." In essence, our God is able. We know what he can do. But even if he does not, we will not serve you, because even if God doesn't change anything, God is still God, and he is able, and all things will work for good. This is why in the book of Hebrews, we are told that faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the certainty of things to come. The timing may vary, but God in his goodness is certain. Here's what I know. Life may not always make sense to us. In fact, I can tell you this, it flat out won't. Sin and brokenness is crazy. It's crazy. And that's why you and I need to be careful not to confuse God with life sometimes. We think because life's out of control, God's out of control. Life's crazy, where's God? We need to be careful to understand that God is not beholden to that. That God is God and he is worthy of our affection. And we need to encourage each other with this. Then we're told, lean not into your own understanding. I want to this is a circle. Pretty good, huh? I want you to imagine this represents all knowledge. Like all knowledge in the universe. I want to ask you, how much of that do you think you know or I know? Like you could just mark it off on this circle. If this it'd be a minuscule dot. It wouldn't even be worth putting up there for me. Again, we kind of want to lean on our own understanding. We're thinking like, how much do we really know? We know very little of all there is to know. And yet the scriptures tell us that all knowledge and wisdom are summarized in the person of Jesus Christ. And he's telling us, look, lean into him. It's not about how much you and I know in general about little parts. I mean, some of us know a little bit about agriculture, maybe law, medicine. Maybe some of us know a little bit of philosophy or theology. But when you consider it all, like we're in trouble. It's not ultimately about how much we know in general, but how deeply we know and trust the Lord specifically. Specifically. That's the beauty of this. And then he says this, look, in all your ways, acknowledge me. Gentlemen, I just want to say this again. I know this might sound crazy, but there really isn't an area of life that the Lord doesn't care about or understand. This is why it doesn't matter whether it's relationships, money, decision-making, your sexual life, habits, struggles, you name it. What I think the invitation is that, look, we need to realize that the Lord is an ever-present, wise companion in every dimension of life. Man, I wonder if I should refinance my house. No, why don't you talk to the Lord about it? Pray about it. Man, I wonder what college I should go to. Talk to the Lord about it. Man, I wonder what we got to do with my parents now that they're getting a little older. I don't know. Talk to the Lord, pray about it. I wonder about this investment, whether I should do it. Ask the Lord. Lord, is there anything you want to show me? I don't want to just be wise in my own eyes. Lord, I want to just make decisions from a posture of submission, of a humility. Then as you sense, you get thoughts, ideas, you move, but you're moving with an awareness that my life is under, in a good way, the shadow of the Almighty. And you're open to what he would do. In all your ways, acknowledge him. And this is so great. The promise is he will make our paths straight. It's so great to think that we don't have to do this by ourselves, and yet we often do. And then he says this again, do not be wise in your own eyes. I just know this, that it's just a good thing when we can face the fact that we have a limited frame of knowledge and a limited understanding of things. I want to just hearken us back. Remember the Garden of Eden. It's never crazy to ask, Lord, am I missing something before I have to make this decision? And then just maybe wait for a little bit before you move forward, if you can. To say, hey, Lord, I'm thinking of doing this. Lord, again, you're in me and with me. Is there anything I might be missing? I'm just open to you. Can bring in conviction, a word from someone else, a thought from your word. I just don't want to just be off on my own self, doing my own thing. And Lord, I want to acknowledge that to you. Acknowledge that to you. I don't just want to be wise in my own eyes. Lord, I want to fear you, meaning I want to reverence you. I want to honor you. I want to acknowledge the weightiness of your power. That's what it means to fear the Lord. Romans 11, verse 33 and 30 through 36 says this, oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God. Isn't that great? Oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unfathomable is his wisdom. It's unlimited. Who's known the mind of the Lord? Whoever has been God's counselor? Who? No one. For who is first given to God that he should ever repay him? For from him and through him and to him are all things. We have a God who is worthy of our awe and our reverence. I heard a guy say once that he got a sense of what this word means. He was out paddleboarding with his wife, and when they were there, literally a whale came up right next to where they were paddleboarding. Can you imagine that? He goes, I have never been more afraid with a sense of awe of the giganticness of something in my life. And yet I realized the whale could have totally wiped us out and killed us, but it didn't want to hurt us. It just wanted us to be with us. And it would surface periodically, and he goes, it was truly awesome, frightening, and wonderful. I have a sense that this is where it's like that we have the capacity to know he could destroy. He has the capacity to do all things. He called everything into being from nothing. Boy, an awareness of that kind of power is life-giving. And then shun evil. Just avoid it. Reject it. Don't play with it. It's against God. And ask God even, how, Lord, can I stand against it the right way? Because there are some things that need to be stood against, but in a righteous way. And finally, this will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. When we orient the right way around the one who is worthy, it impacts every dimension of our life. I want to read you this beautiful psalm, Psalm 40, verses 4 and 5, that declares this in a beautiful way. Blessed is the man. Blessed, happy, well is the man who makes the Lord his trust, who makes the Lord his strength, his truest place, who does not look to the proud, to those who turn aside to false gods. Many, O Lord my God, are the wonders you have done. The things you planned for us, no one can recount to you. Were I to speak and tell of them, they would be too many to declare. Amen. Blessed is a man who makes the Lord his trust, who does not look to the proud, to those who turn aside to false gods. Gentlemen, here are a few practical steps in closing this beautiful 8 weeks that we've had together to help keep us on track, maybe to keep answering this constant question well. Learn to be a good student of yourself and know when you're vulnerable to lesser things, to bent desires. How well do you really know you? Go to school on you. How willing are you to admit even to yourself, I'm off right now. I'm in a bad place. Know when you're vulnerable to lesser things and to bent desires. Secondly, that you would keep working on those little daily habits that keep your heart centered. Time in the scriptures, time alone to just reflect, to be, to record things where God's faithfulness has been clear so you can remember. Take a walk, just notice. Listen to some beautiful music. Build these habits into your life that keep you centered. Thirdly, notice the worry and anxiety levels. And then remember the birds. Remember the flowers. Jesus said, God takes care of them. You can worry if you want to, but if you would just trust me and seek first my kingdom, I will add all these things to you. I got your back. I actually care more about you than you do. That's good news. Another one is remind yourself of whose you are. You're the Lord's. And in this way, self-denial is the best self-leadership. We can literally not deny myself my worth. I just don't have to run my own life because there's someone who wants to and is capable. It's the Lord. I'm his. And finally, find a brother or two to walk with deeply. So when you're in those vulnerable moments, when you learn a great insight, when you have something that you remember that you want to share, that you have somebody to deal with, to share it with, to open your heart to, that can help you come back to home when you drift versus just beating yourself up. Gentlemen, that's why this summer even, we're going to allow each of your tables to decide what you guys want to do together. You can continue to meet every week. We've made some suggestions to your table leaders about what to do. You can meet once a month. Whatever it is that you decide to keep these friendships going. God willing, we're going to be together again in the fall. We're hoping and trusting in person. If we need to do a little bit of a hybrid for some of you guys, we will do that. We'll learn more about that this summer, but we're plugging for that. We want to get back together in person, real time, looking at faces, being together. But this has been a tremendous session, and I really pray that you'll continue to ponder these things. Maybe even that's something you want to do this summer is replay some of these sessions that we have or things we've done in the past. And again, we've made some other recommendations to your table leaders. But let's do this. Let's go over our memory verse one more time, Proverbs 3, 5-8. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. For this will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Let's go back live for a little time of discussion before we go to our last breakout session. This has been a great time, men. Thanks for showing up.